Welcome to Yeshiva Daf. Sorry, we're holding in Menachos Daf Samich Tov. We're starting. Sorry, we're starting in Mud Aleph. We're really in the middle of a brayso. So, but what we got to was the right place to stop. Is we learned two braysos until now that brought us a few reasons. How do we know that Menachos Shabbos? We count the Omer, the day of the bring the Omer, and then the counting from there is not Shabbos Bereshis, it's not Sunday. It was referring to Yom Tov of the Shavuos. So we brought several answers. We have the first brayso in the previous Amud, which we're going to see in a moment, because the Gemara is going to go back to tell us which answers stays, which doesn't. And we have another brayso that started in the end of the Amud base, and now we're getting to the end of that brayso. That end of that brayso has other drashas that we're saying regarding the Omer. We get in a moment to the back to the answers. The Gemara says, Miyoim is about a third down on Amud Aleph, starting the third word in the line. Miyoim aviachem tispiru. It says when you bring the Omer, you start counting. It says the Gemara, Yochel Yiktzor v'yovi. Maybe what you could do is you could harvest, cut the Omer, bring it, and then start counting whatever you want. You don't have to count immediately after. Start counting Achel Chamish. Achel Chamish means right away when you do the Ktsira. If so, maybe he will harvest, count, but he won't bring the Omer to Beis Hamikdash until a different day. Talmud Loimar miyoim aviyachem. It says Yom Aviyachem, so that's when you start counting. Im Yom Aviyachem yechol liktzor v'yispor v'yovi b'yom. It says Yom Aviyachem. So we do all day in the day. Talmud Loimar sheva shabbos tmimois tienu. Tmimois includes the night. That's what this is one of the source that a tmimois includes the full day. You have to call from the evening. Maybe he will do Ktira, Hava, and everything in the night. The day. That's the Vaskan on all these drushes. You have to harvest in the night. You have to count in the night. But you have to bring it only in the day. Okay, so now the Gemara goes on to summarize what we had, all the different answers. How do I know that Shavuos is not a Sunday? How do I know that Tzviyas Soyim doesn't start on a Sunday? Amarava kulo islor pircho barbitarte tanoi basoi. All the answers have a pircho, except the last two answers, beim mastisa kamaiso, beim mastisa basraiso. Sign the first brayso, sign the second brayso, the lesor pircho. Now the Gemara is going to go through each one. So we'll review once again the answers. Yechezkel ben Zakkai was the first answer that Sevachem would base. Yechezkel ben Zakkai said there is a stira. On one hand it says, Tisbru Chamishim Yoim. On the other hand it says, Shiva Shavuos Tisbru. It says the weeks or as the days. So I'll tell you what it is. If you're counting from the beginning of the week, so it's weeks. It's 7 full weeks. If you're counting from the days, for the middle of the week, it's days. That's what Yechezkel ben Zakkai said. As we'll get to it in a moment, we'll get back to that in one moment. There's a mitzvah to count the days, and there's a mitzvah to count the weeks. So that's why it says Shavuos and Yom, not to tell you that you could count from the beginning of the week or the middle of the week. Even when bring me a ride from Lozer Bishua, so Lozer Bishua, the Lozer said the answer, it says it's Sfirat Tluy V'Bezdin. It needs to be a sphere of the Beis Din do, not a sphere that's ingrained in the world. That's Rabbi Lozer. And Rabbi Shua is the one who said, Maneh Yomi v'Kadosh Chodesh, it needs to be like Rosh Chodesh, it's Nikar. Yesterday I said a little bit wrong, that we said Chodesh is Nikar right after the Moilad, comes the Rosh Chodesh. So here's right after the 7th week, comes Shavuos. So one might be on to Rishukai, they'll be on to Achrikai. So this the Gemara says, yeah, I agree with you. It's supposed to be something that has to do with Yom Tiv. But maybe it has to be the second days of Yom Tov, not the first days of Yom Tov. What's Rabbi Shmuel in the first brayso? That they said you compare Menachos to Shabbos to Menachos to Shabbos. The same way there is the beginning of Yom Tov and Samuch l'Biyasor, Samuch the beginning of Yom Tov. And here it says the beginning of the regular, or it's Samuch to the Shabbos before the regular. So we're talking about something which is close by. So he has to be close by. So we're comparing each Shavuos to Pesach, they're all in the beginning. That I don't have an answer. That I don't have a slug up. Going now to the next brayso. That he said, Rabbi brought that it says that Tishbu Chavish should be 50 days and not more. And if Pesach starts Thursday, so it's going to be 52 days. It'll be Friday, 53 days. How about well, that's not a good pircha. Because maybe 50 days means not 50 days from the beginning of Pesach, 50 days from the day you start counting. So if you start counting a few days later, you count from there. That he said the same answer we said before. There has to be sphere of Bezdin, not of set weeks. Same question you had before. Then maybe he's counting from the last days of Yom Tov. Rabbi Yossi himself brought two answers. The first answer, he said that it says if it says Menachos Shabbos, it can't be regular Shabbos because Shabbos, 50 Shabbos is during the week. So if so how do I know we're talking about which Shabbos? Yom Tov, so then I know there's only a specific Yom Tov. So the one doesn't say what the pircha is, but the pircha is that maybe it's the last days of Yom Tov, or say the first days of Yom Tov. Same question that the Shidduch Kovetz brings over here. So that's Rabbi Yossi himself brought a different answer. He said, Shabbos L'Mata, you compare the two Shabbosim, and then the last answer was the Sheshes Yom and Shivas Yom. So the Gemara says the first brayso, the last two of the last brayso don't have a taino. So that's how we conclude. So we have the last two of the first brayso is similar to the one before the last of the second brayso, which is we're comparing Shavuos to Pesach. In addition, we have another answer, the final answer, second brayso. It says 6 days, it says 7 days. The Chodosh, you can eat only 6 days of Pesach. The Yashar, you can eat 7 days of Pesach. That's a raya, you bring the Omer on the second day of Pesach. Kufa, this Gemara, this following 3-4 lines, is the basis of the majority of all the halachas of Sfiras Omer. So we're getting very close, very soon to Sfiras Omer, just a few weeks away. So here's the Shoyesh. Kufa ma'abayi mitzvah l'mini yoimi u'mitzvah l'mini shvui. You have a mitzvah to count the days, you have a mitzvah to count the weeks. Machlokes, we show you how exactly we do that. We have the Rambam, that's where Noyik, that we every single day we say the days and the weeks, except the first week, but we're saying Hayom Shnei Shavuos v'Shlosh Yom V'Omer. Some Rishonim hold you count the weeks only the end of the week. Some have all the shittas, different shittas we show you how you do it. That's what Rashi did. They did the days and the weeks. He counted only the days, not the weeks. So Zeichel HaMikdash, it's only a Zikor HaMikdash, and therefore I'm going to count only the days and not the weeks. So Shitas Rashi and Tosis, at least the way the Achronim learn Rashi and Tosis, that we hold the Mitzvah Omer today is Derabanan. Why is it Derabanan? Because we don't have Omer. You have to count from the Omer. So there's no Omer. If there's no Omer, so then you have no din to count to a Omer Deraisa. It's only a din Derabanan. That's why some were makel not to count full days and weeks, to count only days. Others arguing, they say you do both, but really we hold as Derabanan. That's the Chur Rashi Tosis and Noikit. The Rambam disagrees. The Rambam holds the Sfiras Omer is Deraisa. The Ameimar holds the Derabanan. We don't pass it that way. He holds the Deraisa. Hi, it says you count from the Omer. It doesn't mean you have to bring the Korban Omer. The Korban Briska, as they say, what happens if they didn't have an Omer and Beis Hamikdash? You still will count. So, in the more like a way that some Chayyim explain it, is the Rashi Toys hold the Ikar Mitzvah Omer is to count from the Omer. The Rambam holds the Ikar Mitzvah Omer is to count 2 Shavuos. Just we start from the Omer. I don't need the Korban Omer to do it. I'm counting the Shavuos. So if I don't have the Omer, I do have the Mitzvah. So according to the Rambam, it's a Mitzvah D'Oraisa to count there's nafkaminas. One of the nafkaminas the Toys himself brings is there an Inyan to count early in the night? Toys wants to say that maybe there's an Inyan to count Miboy Yoim. Why? Miboy Yoim, meaning not when it's not fully night. Why? So Toys says because we also on the Rabbanan. And we prefer to do Tmimois. Tmimois means a full day. So it will be the right, so you have to be careful to do the right day. But the Rabbanan can be a little bit more lenient, and you're Mekayim Tmimois, so Toys holds it's better to do a little bit earlier. According to the Rambam, to be more machmir. Also, you have a Sfeika, according to the Rambam, a Sfeika Deraiso. According to the Toys, Sfeika Derabbanan. There's enough Kaminis, but the Rambam holds the Deraiso. Then you have Rabbi Yucham, that holds that it is, the Behag, Rabbi Yucham, he holds that it's depends what? There's counting the days and there's counting the weeks. Counting the days, that's the Raisa. Counting the weeks is the Rabbanan. Why is that so? Because the word goes to the pasuk. In other words, you're counting 50 days to get the Shavuos. That we have even today. But Shiva Shavuos, Tispar Lach, you bring it from the Omer. So the Shavuos have to do for the Omer. Weeks have, if I don't have Omer, I don't have weeks. But days is towards Shavuos, and now you do have, and there's a lot of Torah on that, the difference with the days and the weeks, and the Chiluk, but you're coming over here to say, maybe there's the Chiluk with the Rabban and the Raiso, between the days and the week, that the Shit is a Behag, if I'm not mistaken, and that is, would depend, if you still count weeks without days, or days without weeks, according to them, it's two different mitzvahs. One is the Raiso, one is the Rabbanon. You may miss one, but not have the other one. Yeah, because the Losh Pasuk is Vatachim Mochas to Shabbos. So you're counting Mimochras from the Omer Sheva Shabbosos. Then you get the Shavuos from the Shavuos perspective, and the Shavuos is from the Omer perspective. So when you put it together, it's really what is the idea of the Sphira? Is the idea of the Sphira counting the Shavuos? The idea of the Sphira is counting from the Omer. So according to the Torah, it's counting from the Omer. According to the Rambam, it's counting the Shavuos. According to Rabbi Yerucham Behag, it depends. Yomim and Shavuos, one is the one is the other. That's the interesting longness that we have over here. One other thing we have here in Tesis, this is the famous halachas, that he says if the Shita that brings the Behag, is it a one big mitzvah to do it, or is several mitzvahs? What happens if you forget one day? If you get one day, do you miss out or not? Here comes that discussion. Is it one mitzvah or separate mitzvahs? And immediately if one forgot, he can't continue counting. So here comes the Brit that says, if you forgot the Mikra mitzvahs in the night, if you forgot in the night, you count the day without a bracha, then you can continue counting. Here comes the source. This is part of the Inyanim Sfira all brought in this few lines of the Gemara.
Or do you become a bar mitzvah?
Yes, the bar mitzvah, that's also one of the big lumdishes. One of the big lumdishes says the big Torah, the bar mitzvah, because of a mitzvah boy doing the Omer, what does he do? Because he started as a Chiyuv D'Rabbanan and then became a Chiyuv D'Oraisa. So a bunch of Shah, without getting too much long, this is very, very easy, because if you...
With separate mitzvahs, then it's for sure easy.
If it's separate mitzvahs, it could be, exactly. If it's separate mitzvahs, he has his own chiyuv. If it's not separate mitzvahs, it's not. So like there's no... Whatever chiyuv he had till, then he can continue on. That's the portion of shot. Someone is saying maybe not, because now the chiyuv, his chiyuv D'Rabbanan changed. It's a tzvei dine chiyuv D'Rabbanan. What's a chiyuv D'Rabbanan? Is the chiyuv D'Rabbanan a chiyuv that mitzad an adult, mitzad a child?
I'm saying, was it mitzvah chinuch or was it just a regular?
Yeah, because they go into the lumdus. So what is the chiyuv? Even a katan who's chayim d'Rabbanan, it's not the same chiyuv d'Rabbanan of a gadol. That's clear from Tosis Megillah. That's why we say that a katan can't be moitzi someone's chayim d'Rabbanan. Tosis says over there. That's one way. And it's not you have also be sharing the whole. The mitzvah chinuch is not on the son; it's on the father. So it's on his mitzvah. So that goes into some of the lumdus that you have over here. You have the chiddush of the achreidim that tell us that maybe the mitzvah of a katan is a mitzvah that is obligated in him that doesn't go away. Okay, so there's a lot of fun stuff going on in this few lines of the Gemara. Let's continue on. Look at the Mishnah. Katzru the rekoitze da'im erben asnu bekupois. They put it into baskets. Hiviula azar the brat azar ba'yu mehavi moisa beor. They singed it in fire. Koli means that it's singed a little bit. The Chayim argue, and they argue in two different things. First of all, according to Rameir, you took it the way it was and you singed it. According to Rabbanan, they hit it with some reeds to take away its outer layer. And then Nastu La'abuv. They didn't singe it in fire, but they put it into a vessel called an abu, which is made out of copper. Abuv had minukov, and abuv had holes in it. Because the fire should catch on. So good to Rabbanan, you didn't just put it straight into the fire, you put it into a cleave that went into the fire. Then it says Shatchu ba'azar, they spread it on the azaro. Faruach, when Yeshiva's boy, the wind came and blew it. Nasnu l'rechaim shalgusos, they put it into a grinder of thick things. And the grusos, Rashi says, a grisim. You don't, because you don't want the outer klipo, outer shell, to stay there. So the thicker it is, it cuts it stronger. It cuts the peel. They took out a sarin that they sifted 13 times. The rest they redeemed it. Anyone can eat it. It doesn't have kedusha. It's chai b'chala because when they give it to anybody and he made a dough out of it, it's chai b'chala. Chala goes based on the gilgul. Gilgul is when you make a dough out of it. Or potum meiser because it grew by hekdesh. We'll see in a moment about that. He says you chayav both chala and meisers. So the Torah on aviv ze aviv. What it means aviv is aviv. Meaning it has to be the original, the first cut, the beginning of the harvest. They have to put it, singe it in the fire. It says, you singe it. That's the one with base. Fire is not koli. Meaning, so the way you read it, that's our lashon, meaning it has to be done by, koli means it has to be used by a copper, which is called kolil. Haketzat, there was this vessel, it has holes in it, so you have to do it through a kli. Aviv kolui gerish. Meaning aviv is the harvest the way it is. Gerish means when you already grinded and took out the outer layer. So you mean, I don't know if it means we're not talking about gerish, we're talking about koli. So you're taking it the way it is, now you didn't take out the outer layer. Caramel, what does caramel mean? Rachumal, it means it's soft and full, means it's moist, and it's fresh. No, so what do you want to bring from here? So we just say the caramel is two words. Rach, v'mal. It's a combination of two words. Rach, v'mal. So you see that sometimes the Torah gives you a word, but it's a combination of a few words. The Torah brings other examples to it. He brought you what? Lechem bikurin. Ve'esrim lechem soimir. What? Soimir. Ve'karmel betzikloi noi. That's what it says. The word that says in the pasuk is tzikloi noi. So what does it mean tzikloi noi? It's a rashetevus. Bo ve'yotziklonu, come and pour to us or serve us. Ve'achalnu, and we'll eat, and we ate it. Ve'novi, it was beautiful, it was tasty. So that's what tzikloi noi is going to tell me. Ve'omer nis also be'avim. That's what it says. It's quoting a zoino, she's Menachos, a woman who's doing snos. So it says the word is also be'avim. What does it mean? Nisa miniten, let's talk. Minale, we'll go to the bed. V'nisrach, we'll have fun. V'nischate be'avim, and we'll have nischate is lotion like go for a walk. Nitaya, we'll have a journey together. Another pasuk says kanaf renenim na'also, referring to the bird. There's a bird that takes its eggs and puts it in a nest. Noise, it carries it, oil goes up, and ischate here means puts it down into the nest. It says by Bilam, ki yorat adech negdi. What is yarat? Yorasa, roso, nataso. She was afraid, she saw, she moved when she saw the malach. Today, Rabbi Shmuel Tano, Carmel is karmole, not rach, the mal, but karmole means that we're talking about it has to be mevushal kol tzorka, completely ripe, because it's filled inside. Okay. So give a chai b'chal meisus. So here there's a discussion if is chayav in meisus or not. Chali for sure chayav. Once you give the dough to a Jew. The Jew made the dough. When you make a dough, that's when you are Chai B'Chala. So once the Yisrael got it, he made the dough, you Chai B'Chala. But what about Mises? So Mises goes, for what? So the Gemara doesn't explain. Rabbi Kiva Chai B'Chala, Zok the Gemara, or Mises, or Avkano, or Rabbi Kiva, Miruach Hegdish Einoi Poiter. Meaning the fact that Hegdish did the harvest, Miruach means when they finishing the harvest, the fact that Hegdish did it because Hegdish took the Oimer from there. So Hegdish took the Oimer. We're talking about Hegdish took the Oimer, and then they took a little bit to use for the Oimer, and the leftovers, what do you do with the leftovers? So the fact that Hegdish did the harvest, ain't no point, there's not point for Maisus. The extra of the short saying of the Oimer, Ma Yoisib, what you do with it? Nivdo, you redeem it. Menachos cholodom. V'chai b'chalo u'potu min ha'maisers. Right? That's what the Mishnah said. V'chai b'chalo u'potu min ha'maisers. Rabbi Kiva b'chai b'chalo ha'maisers. Rabbi Kiva says you are chayav. Amuloi poidim yad gizber yochiach. What happens when a person goes and redeems food from a gizber, from Hegdish? Shechai b'chalo u'potu min ha'maisers. In that case, chai b'chalo u'potu min ha'maisers. Rabbi Kiva doesn't argue. Rabbi Kiva agrees these potu min ha'maisers by a regular Hegdish. The only thing he argues is by Omer. Even according to Rabbi Kiva, anything the Hegdish finishes is not part of it. My he. What are they going to argue? That's exactly what Rabbi Kiva is going to argue. So the fact that it's like Rabbi Kiva said, Omer is part of it. Is Chayv Maisus. So why is it different than any other Hegdish? Rabbi Kiva agrees in the other Hegdish. Says the Gemara, so they have another question. Rabbi Kiva Mechayv B'Chal Maisus. He says clearly the reason, not because the Hegdish is not poiter, because the din is the money. In other words, Chachamim take the tvua, they use it only for what they need. They make it Hegdish only for the purpose they need. So you have they had 3 sale. Out of it came a little bit of oimer. The rest was never kaddish to begin with. Retroactively, we find out that whatever was not kaddish till now. It's not kosher to begin with because Hegdish is chal only on what you need. That is the reason, because it's not kadosh, and that's the reason why what it is. Meaning, it's not because Hegdish is not poiter. Hegdish is poiter. So if it already belongs to Hegdish and then someone redeems it, it's poiter. But to make it Hegdish when I don't need it, that we don't say. Everybody agrees the Meruach Hegdish is poiter. If you're and the only reason it's poiter by us, because we don't need it, so it never became kodesh. Miruach Hegdish is something that belongs to Hegdish fully. That's clear. If a guy does Miruach, he finishes the harvest. So that's machlekes if he's chayv b'maisros or not. The Tanya. You could do truma and maisros from tvua of Yisrael to Yisrael. From a guy to a guy. Tvua belongs to a guy. Which they are considered to be, let's say, going for this purpose. In other words, they all consider chayav, they all have an obligation, there's no difference. Is that to be Rabbi Yehuda? Sorry. One Yisrael, you do truma, another Yisrael. A goy to a kuti and vice versa, yes, because a kuti is considered to be a goy for this purpose. You can't do maisros from a Jew to a goy, or vice versa. Why? Because a Yisrael is chayv b'maisros and goy is not. Why is a goy not chayv b'maisros? Because miruach a goy poiter. Even though, this is the mashwal, so this is what Rashi points out, whatever grows in the field of a goy in Eretz Yisrael is chayv b'maisros. But if the goy finished the process of harvesting, it's potter b'maisros. So this brings you a whole discussion. Because it's machlekes if tvua of a goy is potter or not, miruach is it independent machlekes or not? That's a big choice over here. But the point for us is, Hartman says, yeah, could be that what belongs to a goy is chayv b'maisros as long as he didn't finish the process. If he finished the process, there's a sheet that holds his poiter, and that's the machlekes in his price. So that's a discussion. Continues the Gemara with us. That was regarding harvest. That's regarding maisros. Gilgul Hegdish. Gilgul means when you prepare the dough. So that's what's kriveh for chal. Gilgul Hegdish poiter. That's potter ben chal. The nan. Hegdisha you saw. So a woman was magdish her dough. Actually, Gilgul before she finished preparing the dough. Ubda and then she redeemed it. Chayavis. Why? Because when she redeemed it, it was not Hegdish anymore. Mishe Gilgalo Ubda once she already finished up preparing the dough, and then she made it Hegdish and redeemed it Chayavis, because she did the Gilgul before it became Hegdish. But if Tishat Shal Gilgalo, she made it Hegdish before the Gilgul, which is the end of the preparing the dough. The Gilgul Gizbar, she didn't do the Gilgul, it was on Hegdish. Why? Also, when it was the Gilgul, which is Krivya for Chala, Hoysop Turo. So it's Patur. So the harvest of Hegdish is Patur and a Meiser. Harvest of a Goy, Machlekes. Gilgul of Hegdish is Patur and Chala. Gilgul of a Goy, that's the next part of the Gemara. So the next staff goes into what happens by when a Goy makes a Chala, is a Patur mean Chala or not, and that will leave for tomorrow's daf. Kol Tuv, Rabbi Isai, have a wonderful night.